Egypt has lifted all COVID-19 restriction protocols for foreign travelers to the North African nation. Gambia renews its commitment of hosting the 2022 OIC Summit according to the OIC Gambia Secretariat boss. And different stakeholders in China are supporting persons with disabilities to acquire employment. Well, this and more coming ahead on The World Today. Hello, this is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail. And let's start in the North African region where Egyptian government has recently announced the lifting of all coronavirus-related restrictions on foreign travelers into the country. Now, this decision was reached during a cabinet meeting following an evaluation of the COVID-19 situation in the North African nation, which is at its lowest rate since the advent of the pandemic some 2 years ago. Authorities said the move will help revive the tourism sector, which has been adversely subdued by the pandemic. Here's more details of that in this report.
Traveling to Egypt is now back to normal. People heading to the country will no longer have to worry about having negative PCR test results or showing proof of vaccination. The Egyptian cabinet took the landmark decision of lifting those requirements during its weekly meeting after reviewing the latest COVID-19 infection rates. They have been at their lowest figure since the global pandemic began over 2 years ago.
The decision was made after the recent drop in infection rates. The daily infections have decreased by more than 95%. The recovery rates exceeded 97%. This encouraged the health ministry to move forward with eliminating the tough measures it imposed, which affected everyone in Egypt.
Egypt's current vaccination rate played a major role in the decision by the Egyptian Higher Committee for Managing the COVID-19 pandemic to waive all those travel requirements. So far, 88 million doses have been administered and 36 million Egyptians are fully vaccinated. With more than 55 million COVID-19 jabs in reserves, Cairo has moved to shield its economy from the effects of pandemic control measures.
One of the main impacts that the Egyptian government is expecting to see is a rise in the number of tourists visiting the country. That will preserve many jobs in the tourism industry, which has been struggling from the COVID-19 pandemic travel restrictions. That will directly benefit the Egyptian economy. Moreover, eliminating travel restrictions will facilitate the travel of businessmen to Egypt, which will encourage more investments here.
About 5 million Egyptians work in tourism-related services. The industry is one of the biggest contributors to the nation's GDP. Egypt began easing travel measures in April by cancelling the contact tracing form required for all inbound international travelers. It also restricted disinfecting airplanes to only when a positive COVID-19 case is found to have been on board a flight.
We now realize that COVID-19 will stay with us for many years to come, but it will be a seasonal flu, and we will get annual vaccines for it. So we must get used to that.
Besides lifting the requirements for travelers to show a negative PCR test result and a proof of vaccination, Egyptian airport authorities are also planning to eliminate masking regulations. The Egyptian Health Ministry is saying that Egypt is one of 38 countries worldwide that have eliminated travel requirements, a step many here hope would bring back life to normal in the country.
And the report there is coming from the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Now, Somalia is battling its worst drought in 40 years due to the high deforestation in this African country. Over 7 million people, including women and children, are in a deteriorating living condition amid the climate change effects in some part of the country. Environmental experts highlighted the need for an awareness campaign on the illegal cutting of trees and its ramifications. Let's have more details of that in this report.
A study by the UN Convention on Combating Desertification shows that an estimated 8.2 million trees were cut down for charcoal in Somalia between 2011 and 2017. Experts believe deforestation is the main cause of recurrent famine conditions in Somalia. They are linking this to over 7 million people, mainly women and children, who are now on the brink of starvation.
From 1990, when the Somali government collapsed, until recently, mostly in most of the land Somalia has experienced a large number of deforestation of about 20 million trees has disappeared. But for the last 3-4 years, that number has decreased effectively. So the number now is, but the trees that we have lost before, we didn't actually get back. So that's the impact of the climate change we can see also.
Mohammed is agitating for a national awareness campaign on the significance of planting trees.
At national level, we need some programs so that we can develop the water resources, we can plant trees, and also we can create also institutions that are capable to do something. At very local level, the people, they have to stop cutting the trees and also causing deforestation and clearing the land for nothing. So these are the solutions that has to be in place.
Aid agencies are offering necessary support to victims of drought, despite lacking sufficient resources. Themed Rising Up from Drought Together, this year's World Day to combat desertification and drought is a rallying call to Somalia and other Horn of African nations to work together to prevent loss of lives due to drought.
Coming back home, the Chief Executive Officer of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Gambia Secretariat, Monday disclosed that the date for the 2022 OIC Summit is currently on the discussion between different principles of the Muslim Ummah. Now, speaking to journalists at a press conference at the South Dawda Karaba Jamara Conference Center, Koba Diba reiterated Gambia's commitment of hosting the largest gathering of world Islamic leaders in 2022. Moses Imendi has the details in this report.
The government put up efforts to engineer an effective implementation of all project portfolios that are under preparation for the hosting of the OIC Summit later this year. The construction of urban roads and the VVIP ultra-modern lounge have both registered progress, and now the construction of a luxurious 5-star hotel will commence in the next month. But Gambians remain doubtful about the country's ability to host the summit, with many believing that OIC project components will not see completion before the expected timeline. Yankuba Diba, CEO of OIC Gambia Secretariat, affirmed that the Gambia will host the summit, explaining that the summit date is flexible and subject to discussions and renegotiations.
The things we are dealing with are infrastructure. And some or most of the things that we require in this infrastructural development require supplies. And as you know, or as you might have known, supply chain all over the world have been affected. So the date is not cast in any stone. The dates are flexible in the sense that they can be discussed, they can be renegotiated, but that goes through a process. And that process is still on. As I said, I'm not in a position now to tell you precisely what the date would be. This is being worked out, within and among the different principles of the Ummah. But what is not in doubt is that the summit will take place in the Gambia. And in the not too distant future, we should be able to advise or inform you with regards to a tentative date.
The OIC Gambia Summit is expected to spur massive development upgrade in the Gambia, particularly on infrastructure. Mr. Diba believes that the development projects will turn the Gambia into international meeting and investment hub. It is also set to boost tourism in the country, he added. He called on Gambians to embrace the project and view it as a national project.
As Gambians, we really want to appeal to everybody to see this as a national project, to see this as a badge of honor, that if we succeed in attaining the projects that we want to put in place, we are putting Gambia on a different pedestal. So I think this is the message that we want, to be given out to the general public. The date is significant, but it's relative. It's relative. What it's more important is that all these development projects will remain. You will not roll them like a mat and take them away. They will remain in the Gambia, isn't it? I mean, look at the facility we are in today. This is part of the OIC projects. It's the best in the sub-region. Can't we be proud of that?
The 5-star hotel is expected to have 400 beds and 60 luxury suites. The OIC Gambia Secretariat was able to mobilize over $300 million for the construction of OIC summit facilities. The development project is funded by various partners, but the Saudi government has been in the front foot of the project funding. The Organization of Islamic Conference is the second largest intergovernmental organization after the United Nations, with a membership of 57 states, covering 4 continents. It is the collective voice of the Muslim world to ensure and safeguard their interests on economic, socio, and political areas. Moses Mendy, Eyeafrica News.
Now let's stay within the West African region and Nigeria. We go next. We have the skyrocketing prices of food, commodities, and fuel. Prices in the country are gradually frustrating citizens and the prevailing hard economic situation. Now, last month, the Nigerian Central Bank raised the interest rate as part of efforts to avoid high inflation, but some analysts did not believe the move could make any difference. Now, the West African nation is also faced with forex shortage, which is further aggravating the living condition of citizens. Here's more details of that in this report.
Samuel Owasheye has just returned from the filling station where he had gone to buy diesel to power the generator of the company where he works. With epileptic power supply, the generator has become their primary source of supply, but he says it's coming at a very huge cost.
Last week, I bought it at the rate of $650. On Monday, I bought it at the rate of $765. But today, I bought it at the rate of 800 naira per liter. So I'm frustrated with the situation, but I don't have any choice than to buy it because I need the products. I need diesel to run my gen.
Like energy, the price of foodstuff also keeps going up almost on a daily basis. Most affected, according to the Statistics Bureau, are bread and cereals, food products like potatoes, yam, and other tubers, as well as wine, fish, meat, and oils.
Because of low income level of most households in the country, food has the highest share in their household expenditure. So any increase in the price of food items will mean that households are no longer able to afford the same basic quantity of food they used to eat. And again, you're also going to see that there will be a shift in their income, most of it going into food items. So which will mean that their ability to meet other basic needs will be weakened.
The Central Bank of Nigeria raised interest rate in May in its bid to check the rising inflation. But not many are overly optimistic that will make a huge difference.
I don't think we've seen the worst because if you look at other countries, some countries are their 70-year high inflation rate. We've seen US inflation rate in May at 8.6%. United Kingdom is about 9%. Germany is about 7.9%. And on and on, you can see virtually every country is going through some inflationary pressure. So you have to contend with two factors, the endogenous factors, which are homegrown issues that have to do with insecurity in the country that has impacted negatively on food production.
Nigeria is also battling forex shortage, which is compounding its inflation challenge. Declining oil production has reduced the country's revenue from oil, which is Nigeria's major foreign exchange earner. Capital inflows from both foreign portfolio and direct investments, as well as diaspora remittance, have also plummeted.
These are all the major sources of foreign exchange flow into the country, and they are all in the negative. So if this persists, we are going to continue to deal with pressures on foreign exchange, we're going to continue with depreciation of the local currency or possibly devaluation of the local currency. There is no end in sight unless the government is able to address the issues that are leading to breach of pipelines and so that we can improve our crude production.
It's a challenging time for the Nigerian government. And with general elections coming up early next year, money demand pressure is expected to be on the rise until after the elections.
And that report there is coming from the Nigerian capital, Abuja. Well, you are listening to the World Today News Bulletin live from our studios in Banjul, and this is Eyeafrica TV. And from the report there, we now take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, and you're watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, and we are coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And let's now look at the rest of the stories. Now, the Gambia Immigration Department has recently concluded a week-long training of 50 immigration officers on diplomatic equity and protocol practices. 20 senior officers were trained on document security, and 30 were trained on the detection of frequent document or fraudulent documents. Now, the training is aimed at preparing the workforce with the skills, capabilities, and the competence needed for a sustainable future. Mafuji Sise has the details in this report.
Ambassador Ibrahim Usman Dur, head of diplomatic etiquette and protocol consulting, said the batch is the 10th group to be trained on diplomacy, etiquette, and protocol consultant and has been the best among. He encouraged the trained officers to always ensure implementing their various rules responsibly.
The course informs on how one should practice on a daily basis at both the national and international level. These protocols would be linked to history, royalty, culture, and religion. The courses have been designed for professionals who require competency or wish to learn the skills necessary to be operational. Someone who holds an office of trust, authority, or command, who must understand and ensure the appropriate rules of international protocol and public affairs, specifically newly appointed ambassadors and diplomatic staff, government civil servants, the police, armed forces, the Navy, the National Drug Law Enforcement, prisons.
In addressing his men, Director General of the Gambia Immigration Department, CDM Toure, said it is evident that one cannot be taught everything, but one can be put in the position to find what is needed to be known.
Here I challenge my colleagues that whatever has been taught to you during this week, please go back to your respective duty stations and ensure that what we call mentoring on the job or on the job training, you share the knowledge that you acquire or accrue during this period from these very eminent personalities. Not every immigration officer is opportune to undergo this training. The maiden one targets senior officers. And let me say this on record here today. Henceforth, officers that will go out to serve as liaison officers for GID in our various embassies, as well as our bilaterals that we have with our European partners and elsewhere, will certainly come from the 10th cohort of this training.
Ibrahim Jawara is one of the participants who delivered the vote of thanks on behalf of the group.
But this training has really helped all of us to throw those stress out. I want to sincerely thank the Director General for them also to continue in the future also this type of training, especially people who are not privileged to attend this training. I sincerely want to thank the training school also for their openness and their willing in terms of the way they approach us and the way they assist us. Anytime we need anything, they come to our aid. Without wasting much ado, I want to thank all of you. Thank you.
The objective of the course is to introduce the participants to the ceremonial aspects of protocols, procedures, behavior, etiquette, rules on society, and respect for the order of precedence, dress code, customer care, and quality management. According to the GID, the training has been carefully selected and identified due to its relevance to the operations of the Immigration Department. For Eyeafrica News, I am Mafuji Sise.
And from the report there by Mafuji Sise, on to our last story next, because Chinese institutions and social groups are joining efforts to help people with disabilities access to employment in the Asian country. Now, the initiative is helping young disabled persons to be trained on different skills that are supporting them to change their status. More than 8 million disabled persons are being employed in China, according to the country's Minister of Human Resources and Social Security. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Ling Ling is a tea sommelier with Down syndrome. She's 22 years old and has been working here since she graduated from a special education school.
I know how to make white tea, brown tea, and oolong tea, and I can pour tea with a long mouth pot.
I accept waiters with disabilities. Their life is not easy. We should give encouragement to them.
According to the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security, as of last May, more than 8.6 million disabled people were employed, and about 400,000 disabled people were enrolled in government-subsidized vocational training programs every year. 5 years ago, this tea house started training young people with disabilities. Ling Ling and students from her old school are learning to make green tea. Teachers often act as employment tutors to give their students a chance at success in the workplace.
We will arrange simple and repetitive work content for students based on their situation and accompany them to work until they get used to it.
Many cafes, bakeries, and flower shops in this district provide jobs for the disabled through social welfare organizations.
Special groups need more than welfare. They should not simply stay at home, but instead participate in every corner of society.
China's State Council issued a plan in March, aiming to create 1 million new jobs for disabled people by 2024.
Well, that's a very inspiring report here from China. Peoples with disabilities also need to be given the opportunity to acquire employment like any other person in our societies. And with that, we eventually bring this news edition to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the privilege of your company. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.